Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the South Bay area. We are joined by Al Muratsuchi. He was a member of the California State Assembly from 2012 to 14. He's looking to come back to the Assembly, and I'm glad he is joining us today. Sir, after 2014, what did you wind up doing after you left the Assembly?
So I've been a career prosecutor for most of my career, and so I returned to the State Attorney General's Office of the California Department of Justice.
So how has that experience informed you when you were a member and as you're looking to become a member again?
Well, I've prosecuted both criminal and civil cases, and so I've had a wide range of cases during my career, but public safety has clearly been one of my top priorities, and that's one of the reasons why folks love the South Bay, where I live and which I represented.
And it must be tough in the South Bay with the beaches and the coast and all the beauty and great malls and all that.
It's a very a nice place to live, and we're very thankful. But public safety, we have great school districts, of course, jobs. Those are some like real common sense bread and butter priorities.
So let's talk about your race to return to the Assembly. You were not reelected in 2014, so
correct.
You are seeking to defeat the individual that took your seat. As you are looking to return, what are you hearing from the voters? Because obviously that 2014 race was a squeaker.
Yeah. So we just had the June primary recently, and I beat the now Republican incumbent by more than 3 points. I think South Bay voters clearly want a representative that'll stand up for the community and get things done.
What was interesting about the primary, if I may say, is I understand that there were 3 people in the race.
That's right.
If you combine all the Democratic votes and all the Republican votes, the Democrats got about 55%.
That is correct.
Now, one could argue, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders were still battling, but that's still a pretty decent spread when you consider that there was an incumbent on the ballot. Is that fair?
Well, the main point to remember is that the district actually has a 7-point Democratic registration advantage. So it is a Democratic district, but in 2014, it was a record low turnout year, and Democrats just didn't turn out to vote in 2014.
So as you're talking to voters, what are they telling you? What issues are on the top of mind?
South Bay voters are pretty common sense voters. They want the basics, want good jobs, good schools, safe neighborhoods, and a clean and healthy environment. And so those were my priorities when I served in the State Assembly, and those continue to be my priorities.
How is the top of the ticket race playing in your district, the presidential race?
Well, clearly the presidential race is setting the theme for state and local races throughout the country, and one of the strong messages that we've been emphasizing in our race is that whereas I have from the beginning denounced Donald Trump and his statements of racism, sexism, anti-immigrant positions. In contrast, my opponent has refused to denounce Donald Trump, refused to denounce the statements and the positions that he's been taking. And I think that is a clear difference that voters can appreciate, especially in this presidential election year.
But are they appreciating it? Because look, it's undeniable that Mr. Trump has captured the imagination of some. The district that you look to represent is pretty diverse, large Asian American communities, large Latino communities, a decent amount of actually Muslim Americans in pockets of the district. And so Mr. Trump has made some statements that some call inflammatory, but is that driving voters to go to vote and therefore vote for Mrs. Clinton and maybe Mr. Muratsuchi?
Well, I think even among Republicans in the South Bay, a majority of Republicans are not excited about their top of the ticket to have Donald Trump being their presidential candidate. And I think Donald Trump is too extreme for the South Bay and, frankly, too extreme for our country.
Are they talking about him, Mr. Trump? I mean, in the wake of what happened in Orlando, for example, some found it unique, compelling, that Mr. Trump essentially was suggesting that Mr. Obama was kind of the Muslim Manchurian candidate, that somehow he had dual loyalties, or really single loyalty, and that loyalty not be to the United States. Many Republicans in Washington denounce that. But is that, in some ways, those denunciations arguably could be to Mr. Trump's advantage, because some see it as he's against the establishment, the establishment's coming at me. What do you hear, if anything?
Well, we can all be, against the establishment, but none of us want to support racism. None of us want to support bigotry. And I think President Obama's statement highlighted the dangerous aspect of Donald Trump's rhetoric, where if he's going to scapegoat an entire people, an entire religion, there are all too dangerous and all too familiar similarities to what Japanese Americans experienced during World War II, when an entire community was targeted during World War II and put into internment camps solely because of their race and ancestry. We don't want to go down that road again.
Let me ask you about that. Are you of Japanese descent?
Yes, I am.
Do you have relatives that were impacted by the internment?
Yes.
So, arguably, your relatives, all Americans, but given your family experience, can appreciate the concerns of Muslim Americans, for example.
That is true.
What do you feel, given that your family has this history?
What I feel strongly is that our president should not be scapegoating an entire community, an entire, religion. In the case of Muslims, clearly Donald Trump has been targeting, talking about banning all Muslims from entering the United States, and that is, I believe that is not. The America that I believe in. That is not the America that most Americans
The
believe
flip
in.
side, though, is a lot of folks are very scared. Whether we're dealing with lone wolves, as we saw in Orlando, as we saw in San Bernardino, or coordinated attacks in Paris, in Brussels, there's a lot of fear.
Sure.
And you can play the game of statistics all you want, but those attacks were were executed by Muslims.
Well,
But I'm just playing it out. And so how do we play to the better side of folks when we see these grand attacks being perpetrated by folks that adhere to Islam?
Well, I think the worst shooting incidents in the last couple of years, the majority have not been committed by Muslims, and so
that is true.
To target Muslims, as a group is not accurate and it's not fair. We should definitely go after the bad guys, and as a career prosecutor, I'm all for that. I'm all for beefing up our law enforcement. I'm all for beefing up. Our border control, but we need to make sure that we focus on the bad guys and we don't scapegoat entire communities.
So, are the voters in your district talking about this, or are they focused on jobs? Are they focused on your coast? What are they focused on?
Well, this presidential election year, they are clearly not happy. Most people are not happy with Donald Trump, and
are they happy with Mrs. Clinton?
Many people are happy with Mrs. Clinton. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and my daughter and my wife are watching CNN often, and they're excited about, in my daughter's words, electing the first girl president of the United States.
It would be historic. There's no doubt. His name is Al Muratsuchi. He is running to return to Sacramento as a member of the California State Assembly, representing significant portions of the South Bay of Los Angeles County. My name is Brad Pomerance. You're watching Charter Local Edition. Good to see you, man.